leading spires and Devo. I was reminded of a story about Cleveland. The first time I was here on tour, actually before my Devo days, I was on tour with a group called Sparks. And in those days, pre-internet days, searching out anything was kind of a chore. And my holy grail was two things: collecting condoms, condom packages, and espresso. And in those days, espresso was a rare commodity in the United States. It was pretty much bar culture here, so cafe, there weren't a lot of them. Usually the only place would be a Little Italy. And so on tours, though, I always wanted to seek one out, and almost every time, places that had an espresso machine would be broken. So here, we found that place, and then it was with a broken espresso machine, and then right next door, there was a yet-to-be-opened shop, and there was a big sign on it that said, balloon message. And I was like, wow, is that like a psychedelic band? But I looked at the store, and it was going to be opening soon, so it was kind of a lesson in the whole commodification of capitalism. There was balloon message. It was for sending a message via hot air balloon to someone on Earth below. So you could propose marriage or happy retirement, whatever. So the store's not open. There's two signs in the window. There's balloon message, opening soon, and then right next to it was wanted, balloon operator. So it was a very good lesson on how capitalism works. Anyway, that's apropos of nothing, but it was Cleveland in 1982. So, kind of here, talk about, I'll answer any kind of questions a little bit later on, but one thing that happened this fall was while I was in Sparks, right before Devo, I had a group of my own called Gleaming Spires. And all those just got re-released, and I wanted to say a few words about that. And there's three of them, and there's some available for sale here. And this is kind of what they look like. Nice. Small CDs. And maybe at some point there's going to be vinyl too, but anyway. CDs, yeah, CDs are, I like them in my car. CD goes yeah. Anyway, originally, Futurismo Records, who did the great Devo re-releases of Smooth Little Maps and Total Devo, were going to do like a box set, but he sadly did not survive kind of the pandemic period. So a label that I was connected me with in Los Angeles, where I live, actually was very interested in doing it. So it is now him.
We're going to kind of take over from there. Yeah, I'm a music archivist and kind of producer. I work with a number of labels, and basically I said to David, I said, if you want me to tell your features, no problem. He said, I said, if you want me to keep this project alive, you'd allow me to purchase some other labels. And he, to his credit, said, go with it. And I reached out to my friends at Omnivore, which is a wonderful label. If you don't know Omnivore Recordings, check them out. They do all types of reissues with new artists and everything. And the great part was I didn't have to really go through the whole, usually the whole pitching element where I had to say, you should sign this band, they're really good, they make some great albums, they're really great, they spark. I didn't have to do that as much of this because they actually knew of Bass Motel and his Spires thing, and they knew Spires. And they were fans of it back in the day, so they were like, yes, let's do it. it wasn't a long, like, drawn-out process. It was like, yes, let's get these out there, you know. I know a lot of people did ask why couldn't they come out on vinyl right away. You know, for those who don't know, there is a big backlog at the moment with the vinyl plants. But there's a big range. I mean, it's taking months and months to release them. So we could have waited a year to get them out, or it could have been, let's get the CDs out first and then, you know, buy those, and then if they sell, we'll be buying them. I will say first off, if you buy the vinyl if it comes out, it's not going to be a cheap cash grab. There will be things on there you can't get on a CD. Because
maybe it's something new.
Yeah, it's something new, maybe. I mean, it shouldn't be the kind of thing, hey, you bought it once, please buy it again, pay double the price. You know, I don't like that shit. So it's like, I want there to be something out there that you can say, okay, you know, this is something that I've never heard before, and whether it's visual or audio or some sort of, you know, exciting new thing you haven't heard. But, yeah, they pretty much went full that.
Oh yeah, and they released all three, so the complete thing. The other nice thing, just for us, we did a lot of film stuff, and all of those songs are on various CDs. And actually, my first cross-pollinization with Devo happened on a soundtrack to this movie, Last American Virgin. All of that kind of started the ball rolling. That was kind of 81 to 85 for me. And in conjunction with playing in Sparks, they were both the same band, kind of back and forth. And up to the end of that is kind of when some of my Devo origin stuff started. When they were on hiatus after Shout, I did a lot of studio work at their old studio in Marina Del Rey with Bob Casale, who I still miss very much. But he was a great engineer. I mean, like an amazing engineer, very fast, and just for like live bands got it together really quickly and did a number of projects there, including Visiting Kids with Bob One and Bob One's daughter, and Mark's girlfriend at the time, Nancy Ferguson. So anyway, all of that combined after this period to when they started up again, they just asked me to be drumming and the three records.
One of the things that's so great about the reissues also are going through the vault of favorites and what he has. I mean, a lot of people obviously, I don't know how many of you know Living Spires that have heard the album. Hopefully, a bunch of you? A few of you? Yeah, you know. As Les said in the credits, he said, originally Les, remember, in the beginning and throughout the band said, I hope this sells more than 3 copies than initially sold of all our records. And I put a little thing in the credits where I said, thank you, Les, we'll make sure this sells more than 3. So, you know, there is, you know, people that did buy them back in the day, but going through your vault and really finding the unreleased material was incredible, because the Bass Motel stuff in particular is really, I mean, if you like power pop and punk, I mean, it ranges musically, but it's 79 LA power pop / punk. I mean, just amazing stuff.
Yeah, and it was on a punk rock label called Hodge Boy, which was notorious that you never knew how much you sold of anything. So,
and the funny thing is,
that was the question. Like,
the bass stuff, which I believe is produced by Andrew Gold, Gold People, which I think is, I mean, I don't think anybody knows who Andrew Gold is, but he's mainly a pop music guy.
Yeah,
he's a big as a guy producing, you know, punk. And that stuff sounds incredible, and to me those tracks, when I told him, when he sent me the file, he just said, all he said was total power pop. I listened and I'm like, this could have been a bomb single back in 1979, and guys would be like, oh, we're crazy for it now, you know. I'm glad people can hear it.
yeah, no, yeah. So anyway, yeah, so I'm very happy that has come to fruition, and just like in the last month, so this is one of the first times today we talk about it live, and I'm very happy that this exists again. And I'll be sitting in later on too with some stuff towards the end of it. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if people have any kind of questions about Devo time or anything else,
Anyone wants to know about how the project came about or anything, you know, any random?
Was it Kendrick who did like Lonely Boy?
Yeah, same guy.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's that Andrew Gold, and
I figured I gotta ask.
and we mentioned in the liner notes, because one thing you don't mind, I'll talk about the liners a little. If you read, I don't know how many people will like us and actually read the booklets that come with the CDs and actually read the lyrics and this kind of stuff.
But it's all there.
It's all there, and the whole story of Living Spires is in there, and it talks about how that connection happens. There's a lot of rare photos in there. There's actually track by track where David and Melissa talk about how the song came about, the inspiration, So it's not like that, you open it, you're like, oh gee, there's nothing in here. There's more than enough to keep you entertained, and it explains how they were working with art and how they will produce them and most of these kind of stories.
And there is actually a Gleaming Stars version of Somewhere, a very different take on a song I got to later do with the
And then for any Sparks fans, there's a really rare track on there. There's an authentically unreleased Sparks Spires collaboration song, which was only used on the soundtrack of the film. It never came out back in the day. So it's the only place you'll find that is on the CD. And it's really a beautiful track. I like it, but kind of like the movie.
yeah, it's a power trio, guitar, bass, or no guitar, bass, drums, and Ron Mail keyboard.
Feel free.
Are you still connected?
Yeah, this year was kind of big for them. There was a documentary maybe someone had seen it. Filmmaker Edgar Wright did a very thorough, they've done like 25 records or something. And yeah, I'm in it, interviewed. No, I'm not playing with them anymore.
But you're in the film.
But I'm in the film, yeah.
I love there's a great quote from me in the beginning, and it has no place in context. Where it's like anybody who's seen the film, it's in the first minutes where you say, Dean Martin to look at us like this. And it's like, what the hell? Because it doesn't make any context, and there's no beginning or end to that story. It's just bad. You don't have to tell us.
But he was Dean Martin was fascinated and oddly upset by Ron Mail's mustache. And when he was like 3 sheets, it was pretty funny.
Favorite Devo song?
Favorite?
Please.
I'm going to actually be able to play one of my favorite songs tonight. There was a live album we did at it was cut in Los Angeles at this place called The Palace. And the last song in the official set was Gates of Steel, which besides being a great Devo song, it has sort of a anthemic rock quality that every time that would start, kind of like my hair follicles would tingle. So that was always a really fun one to play. In the whole career arc, of Devo, the period I was in maybe wasn't the biggest selling, but for my taste, at that point it was back to kind of 5 guys just doing the job again a little bit. It wasn't like a huge stage production, and it was all like drums again, very little sequence. To me, that's what I loved about them initially, because when I first moved to LA, I saw them right when they were trying to get signed, and they were like, man, this is a good group. So, and we were all, Midwest folks, so anyway.
Those albums are great, dude. Those albums are awesome.
Thank you.
And I'll add in the liners, you mentioned Midwest. The whole story, because the first album, when I for those who haven't seen the booklet, I wrote an essay in each one, and then I basically constructed the liners, which are Les and Dave talking to one another. You don't see me in it because you don't need to hear from me. But you talk a lot in the first booklet about really the first liners about your early years in the Midwest, which are interesting for those who want to know. Usually you just hear as a fan, they went to LA and that's it. I think the beginning of the story is a very important part of it. Nathan is intimate, the labels are like, this first part is really thick. I went way over the word count. I went way over the word count on that. And I'm like, well, you know what? We really can't take anything out of it. I find it a little bit of shit.
Yeah, it might be more than the percent everyone wants to know, but that's the thing. The thing was, in the Midwest, like there was in 75, 76, there was not there were a lot of clubs and people went to see music, but they did not want to necessarily be hearing original bands. So the call of Los Angeles or New York kind of was, that's the way it was. And then once you got the deal, you'd come back through. But it was the same thing with Devo. They made trips out to the East and West Coast, and that's kind of how the industry worked. But you learned how to play here because you had to play a lot, and you could actually make a living doing it. So it was great training from Chicago.
I mean, it's cool reading about, like I said, I mean, there's a lot of, for those who, you haven't seen these on YouTube, one of the interesting things about them are, there's some great hype quotes on them. I feel we should mention them.
Oh, yeah. I'm a big fan. Besides being a musician, I'm also a big fan and music collector and condom collector and fez collector and all. But yeah, we got very funny stickers to go on. I think we have the only blurb Aldous Huxley ever did.
And there is a good story behind that. Since he's not here to tell,
Aldous Huxley, one of the novelist and kind of one of the reigning kings of psychedelia, and his book Doors of Perception, the doors named after. Anyway, he lived in Los Angeles, and when Les was like a wee lad of 8, my partner, like 8 years old, he was singing in a choir at school, and Aldous Huxley was at the school for some reason, sitting next to Les's mom.
I think his niece might have. He said his niece was there.
And at some point during the thing, Aldous Huxley turns to Mrs. Bohem and says, "Your son Les has a lovely voice." So we took that out of context and used it.
It was funny, I'm putting together the liners, which, for those who don't know, basically it was hours and hours of interview tape, and then I took that, and usually when I start a thing, I'll do interviews, and then that could be anywhere on the project, from 2 hours to dozens of hours, and then I sit and transcribe it all, and then I see how much am I going to take out, and he told me that during the phone conversation, and I told him, I said right away, I said that has to be the hype figure. I said that has to be the hype figure. So when I reached out to the label, I said we need 3 stickers, one for each album. One has to be the Ron Mail quote from the back of the first album. This is the best Living Inspires album ever. But I said you have to put 1981 on that, because it ruins the context. Because now that they have 3 albums, you could say, oh, we said that yesterday. So, and the second one was the Aldous Huxley. And the third one is your great quote. Which I think really,
my self-description of Living Spires, we always felt, because we would have pretty perky melodies, but very dark lyrics. So the thing was that Living Spires is the sound of being homesick in your own home.
I keep saying I'm like that. But we even title, I think I should find the title of the first essay that. I was like, that's just the perfect. That's such a David. I love his lyrics. I mean, if you listen to a lot of the songs he wrote, like Mining is one of my favorite Inspire songs, which leads off the second album. And the lyrics, as you said, they speak about several different things. There's all these levels to it. And like to that quote, there's different levels to it. I mean, there's a lot of things like that that are just interesting depending on who you think.
Yeah, I guess there's not. I think part of my reason I'm kind of maybe slightly atypical drummer, I think, is because I write lyrics as well, and I'm not just playing with a bass drum or bass guitar necessarily all the time, but kind of hearing the whole lyric content. And I always want to know what songs are about. It fascinates me in different groups I've been in how lyrics come to be. Sometimes for me it's always the very first thing. And Devo songs, there'd be sometimes a working title and not finished lyrics. And then in Sparks days, the lyrics were written literally the night before they were recorded. There was like a nonsense sing-song part that they weren't done, which I couldn't even imagine kind of writing. So, anyway. Yes?
I think I saw your hand up earlier.
Is there anything up with Revolution? I love that album. I bought it from you a couple years ago. But definitely want to hear more.
Yeah, there's actually, I kind of stay involved in about 3 or 4 different things, and then I've always liked the heavy side of psychedelia, like blue cheer, etc. And I play in a group like that, mostly based in San Francisco, called Revolution, and I get to write outer space lyrics and science fiction themes. So yeah, there's a 3rd album coming out. I have 1 or 2 promo copies. We might actually change some songs out, but yeah, that's coming out too. And I'm also working with a group called Shoo Shoo, this kind of experimental, thank you, band as well. So I don't know how to do anything else, so I'm going to do this till the day I keel over. And I love revisiting, coming here and revisiting the Devo time. They're amazing, appreciators. I really love coming to these. It's very fun.
We love you being here! Yeah.
Oh, being a musician, for me, it's like very satisfying artistically, but frankly, there is a tourist element to it, because you get literally to be paid to go around the world. And one thing I kind of noticed immediately was condom machines, condom packages, and there's this endless derivation of essentially the same thing, which is a package to be thrown away in vending machines all over the world in every different language. And they're image-based. Some are like disguised as other objects. Some look like medicinal packages. Some are sordid and seamy, like Pulp Fiction looking. So I started collecting in the 80s condom packages from everywhere. And I have amassed, I think, one of the largest international collections of the packages at all. And one of the most successful and prized versions was with Devo, and we got to do shows in Japan in mid-aughts. That country they treat condom arts like they're like little beautiful chocolate boxes. So they're these gorgeous like art pieces, and then they're wrapped in foil and then tied with ribbons and presented to you as like this offering. And it was amazing. So that I have that. I owe that whole collection to the fact that I'm able to go around the world and play music. And someday there will be a book of the entire collection.
We need to make that happen. We really need to make that happen. I mean, because anytime I find vintage condoms, I'm like, I just send them there. In fact, I told them today.
Yeah. So please.
I told them today. I said, it
If
reminded
anyone
me.
goes to Madagascar or anywhere I don't have one from.
Yeah, it's very probably lying around.
He just contemplating on
Can you give me his address? No, but it is interesting, the packaging and a lot of the graphics. I mean, I love graphic design, and there's a lot of interesting, very unique things.
Yeah, that's kind of the slant of the book more than the actual object.
And now it's getting tougher to even find the machines in a lot of places.
Yeah.
They've employed, in terms of like, it used to be you go to like a rest stop and you go to the bathroom and now it's not, I guess, PC friendly or as much.
There's still novelty. Well, yeah, there's still all over the place.
Oh yeah. Condoms are everything.
Yeah. Yes. Oh yeah, definitely. It's in fact my dream idea is to have like a 12 by 12 or a square thing and then seal it in a graphic. So it would be a giant.
Yes.
That's a must.
It should be a real ready-made.
Object.
You have to make it do Sean proud. It should be like a real ready-made thing.
Be safe to read.
Yes.
It should be in every library, every home library, every public library, everybody should.
Anyone else?
Anybody else?
Yes.
My hands changed, of course, my adult life. For getting better. And I wanted to ask, somebody asked in 2019, Baltimore Key. I can't remember it.
our first tour of the States with me was in 1988, and we did kind of a long show that started with a film, so we never had an opening act, usually, except for some reason in Detroit. Boston too, okay. And we played in this kind of theater that had a, classic 20s style marquee, and the band had a great name. So the marquee in huge letters read three lines, 3 words: Devo, Elvis, Hitler. And that is a prize photo I have.
That's the Trinity of something. That's, I would say the Trinity of Americana, but that kind of doesn't work. For 2 of them, it kind of does. Third one kind of doesn't.
Yes.
Hi there.
Hi.
Hey, is this great or what? Come on. Wow! It's David Kendrick! We owe you that. We owe you that.
It's been long enough to. It's great to be back.
But I have a question.
Okay.
Mr. Kendrick, what did you listen to when you were in high school? What were your favorite bands or artists? What did you like?
Well, I was a pretty severe Anglophile, and I really liked, like everyone, Beatles and Stones, but I was leaning more towards like The Who, The Move, Kinks, and I had the 2 worst role models for a drummer. Keith Moon and Ginger Baker, who were both essentially lead drummers, so you really had to be in the right kind of band to do that. But yeah, that was mostly it. And psychedelia, I still love that era of time, and experimental kind of oddball stuff, which I also still.
We tend to share a lot of the same musical interests. I know, because a lot of times we'll just talk on the phone just about records. We'll just talk just all the time. Did you hear that thing? Did you hear that thing?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, the thing I have never stopped, wanting to hear something new, or hear the new thing, or seek out something I haven't found. I mean, the fan element of me, has never gone away, it never will. I mean, I'm very happy to be playing in all kinds of bands too, but I always want to hear something I haven't heard.
Wow.
Yes.
This would be a follow-up to his question. You've actually been in bands, and I didn't know until I was an adult, but you've been in bands that, as a kid growing up, that I really liked, and where your influences as a youth, do they in any parts play kind of what you joined?
Yeah. I actually, when I still lived in Chicago, younger, I really liked Sparks. I found them kind of an eccentric band, and I really liked them before I joined them. So when I first met them in Los Angeles at one of the few places with a working espresso machine, we would just meet in this place called the Farmer's Market and drink coffee and talk about movies and that. So yeah, I mean, liking them to actually playing with them. What other career is there like that? I mean, it's really, you get to play with your idols, a few years down the road. So it was pretty great.
And can I mention Lessons in Line that he said, it was the one that's in the liners of the children, you're supposed to be the fathers of the new way. He said that you're supposed to be the fathers of the new way it comes to your children.
Oh, come see your show.
Yeah, I love that line. It's in the liners though, when you guys met them at the coffee shop. He said, when Elvis said, you guys are supposed to be the fathers of the new way. Why don't you come visit your children sometime? Yeah. Which I think is a great line.
And we originally, wanted to maybe just produce a demo, and lo and behold, they actually asked Bates Motel to actually be their band. So I was like in seventh heaven.
Yeah.
So thank you, Espresso.
Yes. Everything comes back to espresso. I'll talk a little, I think it also, you talking about bands like it's a lot of people getting involved. I mean, for me, getting into Devo years ago, for me, it was more through Dada and surrealism, which is, you know, my big interest. And I think a lot of people the other way around probably discovered it.
Yeah, and I mean, just the whole idea that now it can be told, just the whole history, the art elements of Devo was like, that mixed with sort of a proletarian work ethic where everyone wore a worker suit. And I think some people miss how the physicality of the band, like in early days and then even in my period when it didn't have the big show, it was playing hard and fast and sweaty too. And some of the costumes were not made for the comfort of the performer.
It's funny, I mean, like, I know for myself, I've always noticed that bands I really like tend to have an art movement they built around it. Because I'm a huge Fonzo Joe's Band fan, I don't know how many people. Crickets, of course, yes. Yeah. But now, explore them, because they were basically British art students who made their own robots and put them on stage, and, you
And
know,
like weird vaudeville music.
weird vaudeville music,
Performing songs.
and exploded instruments on stage, and stuff that is very art-based, and, you know, it's actually, you know, hopefully going to be a box set of their work coming out next year. I contributed an essay too, and I did a lot of archival work for them. But it's another Dada, like, again, there's a lot of bands like this, but like, you realize they have this art base that they carry with them. And they become rock bands through the process, but there's always the art element.
And I really think through the years, and Devo is well up on the top of the list, but
I mean,
certain bands are working in an art form. I mean, they're rock bands and they play, but it's really, they're very conceptually based, and they're like, it's an art piece.
as far as
very much
visual
so.
and the art.
Yeah, and I'm very pleased that I've been involved in a couple of those kind of groups. I think as time goes on, that's going to be more and more acknowledged, you know, that kind of stuff. Yes?
Did you enjoy or have a favorite music video
That I was part of?
Favorite Devo music video?
Enjoy the music videos or do you have a favorite?
Disco dancer.
Disco Dancer was fun to shoot. Yeah.
And there's a good story with Greg on about the label. He shot the photos for them.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
This is a good time, actually.
No, yeah, as it turns, yeah, we shot in Los Angeles and in New York for Disco Dancer. And actually the New York setting was in Alphabet City, which in 1988 was still pretty gnarly, and we were shooting in this ballroom, and outside there was a street that no cars could come down. There were like drug dealers at the end that would allow cars through, and they had bricked the person selling the stuff into this small enclosure, like bricked it in until he could sell everything, and then they would let him out so no one could get caught with the stuff. So all of that was kind of odd.
And one of the things that was great about this project also was talking to the label. We started talking about Devo, and one of the really great, you know, people at the label, Greg, he says, "Oh, I shot the still photos for the Disco Dancer video."
That's right.
It's like, okay, so, you know, you did that. Okay, you know, so that was like, it's all full circle. Like, okay, he shot the still because he's an amazing photographer.
In the Pioneers Who Got Scalped box set, there's a photo of me from that.
Is that one he took?
That session.
Is that one he took?
Yeah, that's one he took. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, all that stuff comes in there.
But it's like, that's why it was great. Again, when you told me that, it's like, okay, I don't have to really explain to you who these guys are. It's like, okay, you know. And then a band he had worked with back in the 70s called the Bullet Boys, not the metal band from the 80s, he was a punk band. He used to play with bass. And he was like, okay, I used to roadie with them, and I used to play bass. Okay, so it's like, okay, we're on the same wavelength. We don't have to go through the whole rigmarole, you know. You should really put this out because it's a really good album, and, you know, people will buy it. You know, you have to go through as much of that. You know.
Yeah.
There's always a lot of that. Not as bad.
Yes.
How did you get a writing credit on E-I-E-I-O's That Love Thing?
I co-wrote songs on each of their records. I knew before I moved to Los Angeles, I was actually in a group with two of those guys in a, dare I say, power pop band.
There's nothing wrong.
And,
It's not a dirty word. It's not a dirty word.
And I moved out to join a Kim Fowley band that promptly kind of broke up. I stayed in California, and the rest of the guys stayed in the Midwest, but I kept up with them, and I would write songs to the mail with those guys. And then later, the Steve guy moved to Los Angeles, and my ongoing kind of art concept album project, The Empire of Fun, which I have stuff is still with Steve. So if there's one thing I learned, I think for me, I have fierce loyalties to musicians and artists that I admire, and I'll stay with it, for a long time. And I was right most of the time. He's a great singer, and I love my Sparks period, and I like my Devo period, and time is showing that they're definitely worthwhile endeavors. So.
Mentioning interesting songwriting, because it's always interesting seeing what credits David and Les wrote, and I think I'm going to bring up the Chipmunks. I have to bring that up. Les says, do you know this story? How he wrote the song for the Chipmunks? Les? This is a real story. He's not here to tell it, so hope he doesn't mind if I tell him. There's this album for Big Chipmunk, and if you look on the credits, there's a song called Lunchbox, and it says Les Bowie wrote it. So I said, you have to tell me the story on that. I mean, he started telling me I was part of a musical he'd written back in the day because he was writing country songs, and then it ended up getting used. He knew Ross Bagdasarian and the guy behind the Chipmunks, and he ended up using it. And I think, what was he saying? I think he said he got a gold record for that?
Yeah, he did.
So it's like, that's pretty cool. It's a total randomness thing, but it's like, I like those random stories. I like hearing those, and I'm like, you have to tell me the story, even if it's a 2-minute story, I still want to hear it. How the fuck is this,
And it is weird in music, the random things, somehow, like years later, there'll be some connection you didn't know, even like with this label, or it just seems to happen. I'm finding that actually generationally now. Actually, Visiting Kids was the group with Bob One and Nancy Ferguson, and there were 3 kids in that group. One of them grew up and had a kid, and that kid is now the lead singer of this group called Starcrawler. So I'm like, no, it's not even the daughter, it's the granddaughter that I used to know. But there's that too.
And for what it's worth, I think that Visiting Kids record is actually it's a really great song. I don't know how many people love it. I've mentioned a bunch of you.
Nepotism!
Nepotism, yes.
Nepotism!
Microwave babies.
Actually, there is one other actually interesting.
Trilobites!
Okay.
Oh my God.
They only have like 6 songs, so this will be rather.
The man knows his Visiting Kids.
You want to name the other 2 or 3 while you're.
Never heard of them.
No, there's one other interesting connection. There's kind of a little nascent psychedelic scene in Los Angeles, and made very interesting bands, and I use a lot of these guys on Empire of Fun projects. One is this woman named Lena Geronimo, who is Lena Myers, who's Alan's daughter, and she's a super brilliant songwriter in her own right. So I mean,
It really is
that was just pretty cool. So she's in music too, keeping the Alan name going. So, this is good. Should we be wrapping? Anything else?
I can't. Feel free to throw out any questions.
Yeah, I'm going to be here all day. I'm not going anywhere. I'm playing later tonight. I think it's the very last thing. And I got stuff over on the table, and I'd love to chat more and talk to people.
If anybody wants to know about what it's like being an archival producer and the exciting and varied career of being a music writer and, toilet stupid and all that.
All right. Thank you all very much. Pleasure.